Even the most seasoned observers were shocked by what transpired next, but let's start at the beginning. Sergeant Marshall believed he had arrested just another haughty black man, but within a few hours his career would fall apart and everyone in the nation would know his name because he had arrested the Attorney General, and not just any driver. The shift had been uneventful, and Sergeant Dan Marshall was aching for some action. So, why did Sergeant Dan Marshall was aching for some action? He was stretched out in his patrol car, looking at the empty road, when he noticed a black sedan traveling a little quicker than the others. The driver, a black man in an expensive suit, was way too confident. When they pretended that the law didn't apply to them, Marshall sneered and flipped on his lights. The car obeyingly pulled over, and the driver didn't appear anxious, which irritated Marshall. He walked up, wrapped in the license and registration the man handed him, over his papers without saying anything. "Is there an issue, officer? You were driving too fast." The driver arched an eyebrow at Marshall's falsehood. Marshall detested it when black men addressed him as equals. "So I was traveling 35 in a 40 zone?" He looked inside the car, which was immaculate and had no open containers. "Don't force me to use force. Don't let me get out of the car for any reason. No drugs, no weapons." Eden put his hands on his cuffs and said, "You're making a mistake, officer." "Oh, I decide what's a mistake and what's not." Marshall sneered, rested a hand on his cuffs, spun him around, twisted his arm, and snapped the cuffs on. The man didn't fight back, but as he looked at him, a strange unease settled in his gut. It wasn't fear, rather it was an assessment that "you'll regret this." Marshall simply laughed and walked him toward the patrol car, not realizing how prophetic those soon words would be coming to the moment someone understood they were in serious trouble, Marshall stated mockingly, pushing the man onto a hard chair in the interrogation room. Derek sat up straight and composedly as Marshall took the detainee down the precinct corridor. Unlike most prisoners, he crossed his arms and showed no signs of rage or panic, only his eyes betraying that he had already calculated something. As he started to complete the report, Marshall queried languidly, "Williams, Dirk, you act like you're unique and believe that everyone is impressed by your nice outfit." Marshall froze for a second when he heard the name, but he didn't think much of it. Dirk gave him a small smile, but he didn't say anything that upset Marshall. He was accustomed to protests to get a phone call from angry people, but this silence made him uncomfortable. "Okay." Mr. Big Shot Marshall approached the duty desk officer with a sneer. Johnson was typing the detainee information into the computer when all of a sudden he tensed up, his eyes widening as though he had seen a ghost. "Oh, Dan, what did you just arrest? The State Attorney General?" Marshall felt a knot grow in his gut. "And you were making a silent joke." When Johnson flipped the screen, his title appeared in bold letters, next to Derek Williams' official government portrait, which was looking back at him. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Johnson shouted at man, who is in charge of all the police officers in this state and battles corruption and abuse of power, and you just arrested him on a false accusation. State Attorney General Marshall's gut twisted, and cold sweat appeared on his brow. Marshall took